7:38, very good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
And time to go through the papers. Time to go through the papers now. Joining us, assistant editor at The Spectator, Cindy Yu, alongside writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley. Hello and welcome back. Let's get right down to it, Lewis, with more strikes in the offing.
Yes, more strikes are coming this time at Avanti and LNER. So this is action for next month, 2nd of July, and this is over sick pay changes and adherence to agreed procedures. I'm quite conflicted.
This is Avanti then, Avanti West Coast.
Avanti, yeah. I think that the problem with this is it's a shame for people to not have pay rises, right? Like, you know, people deserve pay rises, but we're in this situation where we can't do it because of inflation. So it's one of those ones where it's like, yes, you're right, but you still can't have it. Being right is not enough. And I think what we have to think about as well, I do think these train strikes are slightly losing their power. I remember, you know, those kind of train strikes pre-COVID, and it would cause absolute chaos. Now, because of working from home, people can, you know, say, well, I'll just work from home then, which is why I think they've kind of shifted a bit to the weekends, and, you know, they do the FA Cup finals and that kind of thing. So it remains to be seen how this will ever come to a conclusion.
Well, have
really.
they achieved anything yet? Various strikes that we've seen.
I don't think they've gotten much.
I think they really have they?
No, I mean, I know it does. It does inconvenience people, but we are just getting to the point, aren't we, Cindy, of just going, oh, so do you need to check if there's a strike, if I'm going to use the train? If there are, I'll do it another day.
Yeah, there was a strike the other day when I was coming back from Gatwick, and I didn't realise until I got to Gatwick, and I was facing a 3-hour bus ride back into town. So in the end, I had to get an Uber with a few other random people that I met.
But Lewis is right, isn't it? The sheer fact that we are now experienced at working from home means that I think a lot of people just have taken that decision. And so while the impact is still there for a lot of people, it's not as huge as it used to be.
And I think what we don't talk about, though, is the impact on those businesses. So if you're having a strike on a big sports day, that's a lot of pubs that are not then having people in those town centres. So it has a knock-on effect for all those other businesses.
Yeah, it does. It does. But not enough of an effect for these strikers to get what they want. It would seem.
That's what it seems.
Now let's have a look at the Mail, Cindy. About the hosepipe ban, which about 1 million people affected by this brought in yesterday.
Yes, exactly. And South East Water was the first water utilities company to put this ban on, even though summer hasn't even officially started yet, according to the calendar. Of course, we have been going through very, very hot weather recently. But the question is, you know, if they can't deal with hot weather for a few weeks, then what happens in the rest of summer? And this comes as a number of other water companies have also put warnings out and say we might be seeing more hosepipe bans. But I was doing a bit of Googling in the green room, actually, and I found out that actually in England and Wales, around 55 litres of water per person per day is leaked. 55 litres per person per day in England and Wales.
So that's horrific.
That's horrific. So, you know, there's a lot of water there. There's enough water for everyone, but the infrastructure's just not good enough, and there needs to be investment on that. Alternatively, Tim Farron, the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, said, you know, if you're going to put a hosepipe ban on, then people shouldn't have to pay for their full price of water. You know, we should be able to get discounts if you're not able to use as much water as you normally would.
The water system and the infrastructure and everything is complete rubbish, isn't it? Clearly, it's not doing its job.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, and then what they do, the water companies, and they have in this case, is they sort of turn around and almost blame the consumer.
Yes.
And say the responsibility is all on us to, you know, get water butts in the garden and let our grass go brown and everything. But actually, maybe
so what are we paying
remind
for?
them exactly that it is their job to maintain the infrastructure.
Exactly. So I think a discount system would be very interesting to explore. You know, for these affected in Kent and Sussex, you know, they should just get some kind of you know, remuneration back into their accounts.
I'm surprised that's coming from Tim Farron. It doesn't sound like a very Lib Dem policy, does it?
Yeah. I'm not sure where Tim Farron is politically these days. You know, I mean,
well, on the back. I saw him at PMQs actually, sat quietly tucked away on the back benches.
I know. I keep getting PR emails from his PR saying he can talk about ethics and religion in politics.
Oh, that's really cool. Maybe he lives in the area that's just had the hosepipe ban.
No, he doesn't. No, he's up in the lakes.
Oh, is he? Oh.
Yeah, he's up near Kendal, where it's No, it has been. The weather has been nice, but it's wetter than most places.
Yeah.
So, and actually, it was right in the middle of all the floods. You know, sort of 4 or 5 years ago, that whole area around him was totally flooded. It was
Well, that'll have increased his interest in the water infrastructure around there. Meanwhile, Lewis, this is a fascinating one. The Royal College of Surgeons have decided to stop their opposition to assisted dying.
Yeah, they have. So they're now joining the British Medical Association and Royal College of Physicians in adapting a neutral stance on it, which I think is the right move. I think that in this country, we really don't talk about dying a lot, and we kind of all want to live forever. But actually, there does come a point, and I've experienced it myself with people, where it's cruel, and people should have that option. A lot of people will just go abroad for it, and I think it's about saying about quality of life and about kind of having that line in the sand. I've always loved, if anyone remembers Joan Rivers, the rumor is that she had something written into her kind of wishes that if they couldn't guarantee that she could do an hour and a half of stand-up a night, then don't resuscitate. And I think that we have to have that attitude of we have to have that attitude of life is precious, but it is about quality over quantity. And I've had this conversation with my other half of I don't want to be a burden. I don't want the kids to have to come and look after me if we're in a state.
We hopefully ordinary mortals hardly ever have to contemplate that sort of decision, but doctors face this all the time.
Yeah.
And it must be seriously upsetting for them professionally.
Yes.
To caught in the middle of an assisted dying dispute.
And you've got doctors who, for example, know that their patient is not going to last long, but their patient or their patient's family is saying, whatever you can do, just make their life longer. But the doctor knows that actually this comes at a huge cost quality of life, because that essentially what kind of life they do have with medical assistance is not.
So they're not voting to support assisted dying, but they're just merely
they're neutral. So they've been opposed to it since 2014, and now they're changing. I think they had a vote of their members, and it was sort of 72% said, let's just go neutral on this.
Very interesting.
It is interesting, and there's got to be with anything with assisted dying, there's got to be safeguards, lots of safeguards built in. But surely we can make a decision about the end of our lives. When it comes to that.
There has to be a way to make it possible.
There's been plenty of doctors over the years that given a slightly too large dose of morphine to someone who's really, really struggling, and all the rest of it. I mean, it's happened. We know it's happened, and it's been a blessing in a lot of cases. Well, hopefully in all of those cases, there's got to be. Yeah.
And I think Lewis is right about quality of life. Hospice care is really interesting as well. How can you make those who don't have long left, instead of thinking, how can I prolong my life, but how can I be comfortable and happy in my remaining days to see my family, see my friends as best as I can, rather than saying, I want another 5 years or whatever it is.
It's interesting that this shows that there is a change in a very slow, which is probably right, a slow change of attitude.
I think there needs to be, because I think it's all good to ignore this until you're sort of in it. But as kind of I have seen people, I won't go into personal stories, but I've seen it where it's now you're in a really awful situation where this option would have been not desirable. No one wants it, but the least worst option.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things. You've got to think about it years in advance.